to start again, just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
and the million faces formed together, made for elevation. And the soldier won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath, when you pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping and the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath, when they pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. You can't resist us. This is how we rise. Oh, heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise. Oh, heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic static. Call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise. Oh, it's our resistance. You can't resist us.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another show of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. It's a pretty important show. And Sean, I agree with you. I was off camera as I was crying like a little schoolgirl during the song, so it gets to me every single time. And excuse me. And it's good. You know, it should get to everybody when you listen to that song, because you should be proud to be an American. And I think most people take it for granted. But, you know, and let's remember really the sacrifice over this weekend for 4th of July. I hope everyone has a great time. I know I'd rather be on a beach somewhere right now, enjoying some time in the sand. But I am here with you guys. Welcome. For you, excuse me, for those of you who are new to the show, as always, I am Joe Vollano. I am your host and your guiding light. And I will do my best to try to break down some of the nonsense that we heard over the Use of Force Committee. They had their meeting on Monday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend it. Unfortunately, I had some other business that needed to be attended to that it dragged me away from it. But I did watch it. I did break down some clips that I want to discuss, so we'll do that tonight. But I do want to thank a lot of the people that actually went up there. Some great questions thrown at them, and some great discussions that were had. But of course, the best discussions are the ones that happen right here. And if you want to be part of the program, always feel free to call in 203-679-9610, or excuse me, I still got the cough. I don't know why I can't get rid of it. Straight Talk JV at gmail.com. So if I hit the mute button there a couple times, I apologize. Don't take offense to it. But I just don't like to cough into the microphone, and then you guys end up having to hear it. But again, I want you guys to call in, because this use of force, this thing's going to go forward. We already knew that this survey was pointless, because we knew no matter what it said, they were going to try to move forward with it, because they have a political agenda. They don't care what the study was. They were just hoping and praying that it was going to go in their favor, which it did not. So, and that's kudos to all of you out there. That's kudos to you guys that took the survey and put in. But you know, some counselors think there was a bias, and so we'll discuss that too. We'll hear that ridiculous question, that ridiculous exchange that they had, and we'll break that down, because that's liberal logic right there. If it's not the results they want, well, it must be biased against them. But we'll get into that. We're gonna excuse me. We're gonna talk about obviously 4th of July coming up. We're gonna discuss that, and I'm gonna discuss something that came across to me on another podcast. So, and this podcast, I was listening to it. It's a brand new podcast. It's called, if you guys, after the show, let me look at the camera there. After the show, you can look at this. I'm going to play a couple of clips, okay? But after the show, you can go, feel free to look at this podcast, because it is absolutely amazing. It is something that I try to do here, where we try to take negatives and turn them into positives. And for these two gentlemen that you're going to meet tonight, they have done just that. They are epitome of what positive thinking where it can get you. When all odds are against you, and you feel like everything's coming down on your shoulders, these gentlemen kicked it in its ass and said, "Get out of here. No, you're not running my life. I run my life, and I'll make the decisions. And they fought back, and they're doing extremely well. I'm hoping to have them on the show in maybe next week. I know, I just found this podcast, so I reached out to them. I have been talking to one of the gentlemen, but hopefully we're gonna get them onto the show, and they could talk to you about their experiences in person. But we'll discuss it. And the name of the podcast is called Falling Up, and you can catch it on YouTube and Spotify, I believe, and a couple of other platforms. But it's called the Falling Up Podcast. Write it down for later on, and I want everyone to go watch it, subscribe to it, and leave comments. Great, great, great show. The first two are a little long, so they're like 2 hours, but that's when you just get to meet them. And then they break it down into my favorite clip that I have saved here that I want you guys to listen to, because it is exactly what everyone needs to do to themselves. But we're going to get into that later on. Let's get down to business, because we have a lot of business to attend to. Obviously, it was an interesting week, to say the least. And also don't forget that we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to leave comments, you could always leave comments there. I always enjoy watching them. So, and Roger's got me on the big screen now. That's how everyone should be watching me, on the big screen, live in living color. So Paul's already taken shots at one of the hosts of the podcast, but he's we'll discuss it later. So let's get into the main topic of the podcast tonight, and that is the survey. So this is the breakdown, and this is the official breakdown of the survey. I thought it was very interesting. A lot of things came right out at me. So for just a recap, for those of you who don't know, that the police survey was put out there as they call it now. They call it a snapshot of where the public's at. So if it's just a snapshot and this is what we got, then all this should just go away. If stats prove that there's no use of force issue, if the survey shows the public doesn't believe there's a use of force issue, then this committee should pack its shit away and go away. Go away. Go spend a week up in a cabin, a year up in a cabin. I don't care where you go. Just get the hell out of here, because this whole thing is nonsense. It was proven to be nonsense, but of course, this show ain't over yet. So instead of everyone enjoying themselves and us having a great show of positivity, which, again, this is positive to me. But I'd rather be sitting here talking about 4th of July and where everybody's going, but instead we're sitting here talking about this. So question 1 was, to what extent do law enforcement agencies work together with community members to solve problems? And over, I think it was, let's see, so 237 said a great deal. No, I should have put my other glasses on for this. 196 said somewhat. And then 75 said a little, and not at all was 18. So that means the public is pretty damn happy with the way that law enforcement agencies work together with the community, I would say. So 79 of the respondents, to a great extent or somewhat. 80% said they were extremely happy or somewhat happy. I don't know about you. I don't know any single city government, state government, or federal government agency that gets 80%. Police department did, because they do their job and they do it professionally and they do it with care. Well, I almost threw the next question away, because you know what this is? This is garbage. It's all Nonsense. Next one. We jumped to 4. I did that one twice. So then we jumped up to 4. Do you feel satisfied with the amount of information you receive from the Meriden Police Department about issues concerning your community of the neighborhood or the neighborhood? 54% said yes. 28% said no. And 17% said maybe. Well, let's get things straight real quick. One, everybody always wants more information. That's great. If you want more information about what's going on in your city, I am beyond ecstatic, because that means you're trying to inform yourself. That means you're trying to be a good community representative. So that's good. This should be even higher. But of course, then there's also people that are going to say no, but there's multiple reasons why it would be no. Listen, the police department cannot give you information every time you ask for it. If there's open cases, they can't talk about that. That's just common sense. But people want to know, and they think they have a right to know at that time, and they don't. But still, even that being said, still 72% of people said that they were satisfied, yes and maybe, with the amount of information coming out from the police department. Could there be more? Could we always want more? Yeah, we can. But this one's going to go in that pile too, because that's where it belongs, in the garbage can. Number 5. Would you like to see more transparency and openness from the Meriden Police Department? Now, this is just a bullshit question. I said that before. It's kind of sad. If you don't want more information, and again, it's the way these questions were written, so that you can spin it any way you want. Because you're going to hear, so Charlene, who ran this, is going to try to use this as, oh no, we need a CRB because people want more transparency. And I'll give it to the mayor, who turned around and said, well, yeah, if you ask someone if they want more information, they're going to say yes. This 20%, this 20.6% who would not like to see more transparency, what is wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Who the hell would not want more transparency or more information? I want as much information as I could get my hands on. So, this should have been higher. This should have been like 80%, 90%. Yes, I want more information. I always want more information. I always want transparency. Always. But do we need a CRB to do that? No. I got an idea. Why don't you counselors do your freaking jobs? Why doesn't the Public Safety Committee do their friggin' jobs? No, they try to pawn it off to other people because they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be responsible for it. It's easy to run for election when you don't have to be responsible for anything. When you could pass the buck to somebody else and you have people dumb enough to believe it, why would you take any chances of having to take accountability? It's ridiculous. It's another reason why I believe we should have a strong mayor position. Listen, for years, the mayor takes the shit for everything, and he has no power. How crazy is that? But the people always blame the mayor. If you go on social media boards, they're always blaming the mayor. Oh, why is the mayor doing this? Why? People don't understand. We are run by the city council. Councilwoman Jelks, the majority leader, runs the show, and she's as batshit crazy as they come. She is. But for years and decades, the council has been able to just push all that crap over to the mayor's spot. Yeah, go bother the mayor. It's crazy. But again, until we get people informed in this city on the way it works, this is what we'll be doing. This is seriously what we'll be doing. So we're gonna get. I know a lot of people are talking about referendums, and we're gonna cover that because I don't believe that's the way forward for us. I don't believe it. So, but I want you guys, I love the conversation. I love it. So keep it coming. But as far as as far as the referendum is concerned, I'm going to be against that, and I'm going to explain. I'm going to show I'll tell my reasons why after we're done with this survey. Number 6. To what extent do you trust your law enforcement agency? A great deal or somewhat, 83.4%. Very little or not at all, 10%. Let me repeat that. A great deal or somewhat is 83.4%. Very little or not at all, 10%. And then 13, and then obviously, you had 6.5% that were unsure because they probably never had any interactions with the police department. And even Charlene, who ran this survey, said that these were very honest answers that were coming from the public. So even though they're honest answers, they're going against your whole theory. They throw your theory to shit. You would just throw it away. We're going to continue on with this charade. Because again, ladies and gentlemen, this is not about the survey. It is about control, a political agenda, and that's it. And money. Because obviously, with power and control comes money. And they'll divert money any way they see fit. So, 83.4%, a great deal or somewhat. This one should be on everybody's refrigerator. But I'm going to throw it in the garbage for now because I don't have time to put it on my refrigerator. Number 9. If you had a concern about the police, who would you go to? And this is good. At least this makes common sense. 44.7% said they would go to the police. And 54.6% said they would go to the city officials. Here's the problem with that. Even though I agree, totally agree. But the city officials don't want to be responsible for anything. They don't want to take accountability for anything. They don't want to hear about your problems. This whole committee is basically telling you that, listen, we don't care about your problems. We don't want to hear your shit. We don't want to hear it. Send it to this review board, this civilian review board. Let the minions, let the little peasants gather around a table and talk about it. Let's do that. Let's talk about that. So, again, 98%, so really 99% was police and city officials. So, that's where you guys should be sending your information and your concerns. To what extent is your law enforcement agency addressing the problems that really concern you? Very much or somewhat, 66.9%. And for rarely or almost never is 9.7. Unsure, obviously, was a high number, almost close to 25%. So I don't know how that unsure is that high. To what extent is your law enforcement agent addressing the problems that really concern you? I would think it's either yes or no. I mean, if you have a concern, and do you know if it's being addressed? And if not, I would reach out to the police chief. He has open door policies, open door things at Thursdays at 2:00. So go in there and talk and chat with him. I'm sure he can tell you exactly what's going on. Yeah, I don't get it either, Jamie. 25% on shot. That one blows my mind because it doesn't really make much sense to me. Because I know I'm damn sure able to tell you whether or not my things are being addressed or not. So those are the main questions when it comes to your typical overall stuff. So let's get down into the nitty gritty of things because I think it's important. that some of this stuff is dug a little bit deeper into. Trust in the police and civilian review. So, to what extent do you trust your law enforcement agency? A great deal or somewhat, 83.4%. Very little or not at all is 10%. Do you believe there should be some form of independent civilian committee that reviews complaints against the police? 48% said yes, 37% said no. So let's talk about this, because I've been saying it forever. Do you trust your agency? Of course you do. Why wouldn't you? All statistics show that they've been doing a great job. Now, again, do you want an independent civilian committee that reviews complaints against the police? We have one already. We have one already. You elected them. You elected them to do a job. You elected them. And then they break down into their committees to oversee city agencies. We have one that takes care of public safety. Do your freaking job. If you don't want to do your job, resign your post as a counselor and go back to doing nothing or whatever it is you were doing. I don't care what you were doing. Just get out. If you don't want to do a job, just leave. Your job is to oversee the police department, the fire department, emergency response, dispatch. If there's complaints, they should go there. And you guys should do it. Great. So, Jamie, to answer your question, yes, of course, police need oversight. That's why we have a public safety committee. And that's made up of city councilors. We have it already. We absolutely have a system in place. All of our police officers have cameras, have body cameras. We've had that since 2017. In fact, Meriden was ahead of the curve in getting the body cams, because they saw what was coming. And if you look at the numbers, you saw complaints against the police department drastically reduce after the body cameras came out. Drastically. So yeah, I love body cameras, and everyone always talked about body cameras. So that, so it was like it was something against the police. No, I looked at body cameras as protection for the police. Absolutely, I always saw them as protection because, listen, like I said, if you look at all the complaints, all the frivolous law complaints against police officers, drastically just went away because now they had video. And it just showed, even back then, what a great job our police department was already doing. But that just solidified it. Oh, I missed one here. Number 14, do you believe there should be some form of independent civilian review, which we just discussed about, to review incidents of Meriden police use of force? Okay, so this one's a little tricky. So do you believe there should be some form of independent civilian committee that reviews incidents when Meriden police use force? Now, again, if it's a use of force and it's justified, no, then what's the point? Now, if they use deadly force, the civilian review board is not reviewing that. That is a whole nother process. And that is done up at the state's attorney's office and the state police. Any deadly use of force is not done by the city, not done by public safety. It's done by the state police and the state's attorney's office, as it should be. So all these people that turn around and say, well, we need to create this CRB because we need to do it before a tragedy happens. And every time you ask them, okay, well, what type of tragedy? Oh, well, we don't know. We don't know, so we just need to form it now. We've had every type of tragedy that could possibly happen in the city of Meriden happen already. And we still have not needed a CRB. We don't need one. But we need to do it before something really bad does happen. Like what? Just give me an example. I just want one liberal to come on here and give me an example of what type of incident would need to happen that a CRB would need to be created. They can't. And let me put it up there one more time in case they forgot, in case they got in here late. Feel free to give me a call, 203-679-9610, or you could email it to me. straighttalkjv@gmail.com. So Jamie asked a question, and I apologize, Jamie. I should have said it first. A CRB is a civilian review board. So basically, it's a group of civilians. It's just your normal neighbors who is going to critique and tell the police whether or not they did a good job or not. Whether they did what was right. Like they friggin' know. They have absolutely no idea. No idea. And I would love for Majority Woman Jelks to please stand up and come on the show. Dial the number 203-679-9610. And please come on and let's have a great discussion about this. Because there's so much I want to discuss with her. And my offer still stands. My offer still stands. That I will have a town hall with her, and we could discuss both sides of anything's on the table. Anything's on the table. I want to have a town hall, me versus Majority Leader Jelks. It could be moderated by the NAACP, so they could give her all the questions ahead of time, so she could get all of her talking points ready. Because I know she doesn't have that good of brain to sit there and go off the cuff. So you, NAACP moderate, and then I'll sit on the other side and we could debate all this nonsense that you guys are trying to push. I think it is a great idea. And you know what? We could even charge for it because I'm sure a lot of people would love to see that. I think we should do it. We charge and we'll give it to charity. Because you know what? I'll go one step further. We'll do it for our charity in the inner city because I know you guys aren't doing anything to help the inner city. So I want to make sure we do our part. I'll do my part. And I'll make the first donation. I'll donate $500 to get things started. So I'll donate $500 into the pool already. If you do a town hall with me, and then we'll raise funds to see how much we could do this for charity. And we can help the inner city at the same time. I think it's a terrific idea. So if that's the ball's in your court if you would like to do that. I almost lost that page. Okay. Excuse me. I don't want that one yet. Don't want that one yet. See, my pages all came out of order now. Very, very disappointing. Okay. So what more would the community like to see from the Meriden Police Department? And this is in order of how many times it came up. So this is going to be in order. So what would you like to see? What more would the community like to see, from the Meriden Police Department? General attention to gun violence and shootings, obviously. Traffic enforcement, which they're doing. Loud music, noise, illegal fireworks. Panhandling, which has always been an issue. Neighborhood and community policing. Stronger response to domestic violence. I don't know what that would actually entail. I don't know what people are looking for in there. More community events with the public. I like that. I always enjoy when the police get out there with the public and hold events. I think they had coffee with the cop again today over at Tom's in South Meriden. If anyone attended, let me know how it was. And then focus on prevention. So, again, gun violence and shootings. That's what I want my police officers doing. Yes. Because I think that's, that makes the safe, that would take care of half the other things that are on the list. in traffic enforcement, they are doing traffic enforcement. They are doing traffic enforcement. And you know what? And it's starting to pay off. In fact, I'm going to have the chief back on and give us an update on where that type of stuff is already doing. Looks like we got a lot of comments coming through. So I'm going to try to get to them all. I apologize if we don't get to all of them. I know a lot of you are sending them through the other channels. So I will try. We'll swing back through there and get them because I see this is going to be a hot topic. And you guys got a lot of comments. So I really do appreciate it. So it's always good to get your feedback. Okay. So specific themes to civilian review. So when asked if what they have a specific theme for civilian reviews, how you feel about it, the first one on top is against it. And then the next one obviously is for it. And then it's for civilian review that specifically also mentions supporting the police, advice or recommendations for who should be on it and how they should be trained. So these are all the general comments. When you were able to put comments in the list, these are what they were. Concerns that civilians can't have the right perspective on or to evaluate, which is absolutely true. There is not a single civilian out there that has the slightest idea what it's like to be a police officer out there. And listen, I've ridden with police officers for decades now in New Haven and in Meriden. Now, I would say I'm pretty knowledgeable on somewhat police processes just from, again, doing all these ride-alongs. I used to do multiple ones a month when on public safety in New Haven. And I still will say I could not tell you, I haven't even scratched the surface. Haven't even scratched the surface to even begin to understand their mentality to go out there every single day and night to protect the same people that are calling for their heads. But they do it every single day with honor and dignity. While at the same time, they have the same people they're helping spitting on them, calling them names, and doing everything they can to fight against them. So then it comes down to maybe it's a cultural thing. And I think that's probably more of what it is. I don't think the police are the problem. I think the public's the problem. Because again, lately it's been, well, it's not our problem, it's the police being bad. So, for all those who want to call on in, 203-679-9610. You guys always feel free to call in and join in the debate. So, for those that support both the police and the civilian review, two responders, it's not us versus them mentality. That's what two responders said. It's not us versus mentality. I believe in the leadership of the MPD and still believe that civilian oversight is essential, which I do too. That's why even in the federal government, we have a civilian overseeing the military because it's essential to do that. And we already have that in the city. We do not want a tragedy in our city to be the reason we implement civilian oversight, and that's my fear. Again, please, by all means, tell me what the hell that is. What is that? What is that? I don't want a tragedy in our city to be the reason we implement civilian oversight. We have civilian oversight, people. Learn about your government. Learn basic civics. Jesus. Killing me, people. And these are people that are supposed to be informed in our city. It's ridiculous. It blows my mind. And this is another one from several supported both police and civilians. I support the civilian committee It will not only hold officers. Oh, we got a call. I'm gonna stop that because I want to talk to Jamie here. Oh, Jamie, I lost you, sir. Go ahead and call me back. I support the civilian committee. It will not only hold officers accountable for their wrong actions, but it could also help support the police decisions with the community. If the community knows that a panel of their peers will be reviewing cases that force was used, the community may support the officers if the civilian community supports the officers too. Okay, so let's break that down for a second. So she supports the civilian, or he or she. I don't know who, if it was a boy or girl. It will not only hold officers accountable for their wrong actions, but it will also help support the police officers' decisions with support the officers' decisions with the community. First of all, I don't want police officers going out there and doing their job worried about what the fuck the public's going to say. I don't care what the public's going to say. Jamie, why do I keep losing you? Do you know what, Jamie? I'm going to call you because I know you. Jamie, sir.
Joe Vollano.
Welcome.
Great talk. How are you, sir?
Welcome to the show, buddy. Nice to hear you again.
Hey, man. Hey, nice to talk to you. I need you to come out and fill my boat up pretty soon.
Well, we'll be out there. We'll be out there all weekend.
Right.
What's on your mind?
Hey, so one of the things that you said was that it's cultural. I thought that was really interesting because I totally agree with that. However, I got to, listen, I'm a huge supporter of law enforcement. Absolutely 100%. I can't even imagine what it's like to pull somebody over and not know whether or not the person that is, being pulled over may or may not have a gun, may or may not be crazy. However, I'm always trying to take the other side.
I like to hear it. Go ahead.
So we talk about culturalness, right? Police officers at one point were trained, and I don't know if it's continuing, hopefully it's not, but they were trained to take an approach towards anybody that sort of questioned them, anybody that, sort of didn't do exactly what they were saying, and they would go over the top. And they would, that was a way to protect themselves, right? It was like, okay, if you're gonna talk back or you're gonna show some minute source of force, then I'm gonna overwhelm you to the degree where, I'm gonna put you down.
And also, just to rebut that real quick, and I think that happens with anything. I think that's normal human response. Just some probably take it more to an extreme more than others. Yeah, I mean, I think a police officer's job, depending on the situation, is that they are supposed to make sure that they are the dominant person in the discussion because they are the law enforcement. And I think to an extent, what you're talking about is when a civilian or a constituent or a citizen tries to push that. So they become the dominant one. And a police officer, would think, is never going to let that happen. At least they shouldn't, because they need to be in control at all times. So they dictate the flow of the situation, because it's imperative that they do that, because it could go sideways really quick in a flash. So I think that's why they're taught that way.
And I agree with you, right? It's about protecting the police officer.
Yeah.
However, when that's your training and, emotions are running high and you don't know who this person is and you don't know, how they're going to respond, there's some gray area that enters there. And listen, Joe, you and I, by the way, we are totally on the same page.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. I am a huge supporter of our police officers. Yeah. But if we're having a conversation, there should be a counterpoint, which is why I keep telling you, you need more guests on your show. And maybe it's because maybe people don't want to be on your show because you'll just destroy them ideologically. But there's some gray area that enters there.
Well, let's talk about that, Judge. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the gray area, because I always like the gray area. I like the third rail stuff. I like the gray area shit. So that's why we have police cameras, and that's why we have body cameras now. So that's really taken away part of that. And you to your point, to your original point, where we're talking about dominance and control of the situation. I think you've seen, since police officers have had the body cameras. Like I said, I've always said the body cameras are not for the citizens; it's for the police officers. It's to protect them. So I think they're able to back off a little, and when they do need to use that force, they can use it justified that they have evidence to back that up. Because you saw, again, prior to 2017, you saw a lot of use of force complaints. And again, it was he said, she said. Once the body cameras came into play, that drastically changed. And it basically went to zero.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you. But here's the thing, Joe. These police officers, they were not like, oh, great, we're going to have body cams. They fought that tooth and nail. They did not want the body cams. Now, to your point, once they got them, they realized, oh, this is actually going to protect us from these frivolous claims.
Well, I think
there's something to that. Like, I had a conversation with what was he? He was a Bureau of Tobacco and Firearms federal agent in Mystic one night out at the bar. And this guy, like, he tracks down high-profile drug traffickers. African-American dude. This is before body cams were prevalent. But it was like right when this all started, right when the conversations all started. And I was like, hey, man, you're an African-American dude. Like, you're a police officer. So you kind of like, you sit on both sides of this argument. What say you? And he said, you will never get a camera on me. Do not ever, ever ask me to put my life on the line and then, proceed to question the way I go about doing my job. Now, I think that was the wrong mentality. And to your point, I think that, the body cameras ultimately, they do protect our police. And I think they're a great thing. They give accountability, but they also give protection and cover to our people. But it's not like they were well received.
Absolutely.
Right?
Listen, with any change, you're going to have pushback, especially big change. Because remember, when they pushed the body cameras at the first time, they weren't pushing it they weren't coming from a perspective of, we're doing this to protect you. It was coming from the we're here to watch you now. And I think once they were implemented and they started going the other way, it was the public that was getting all pissed off that, the people weren't being prosecuted. The police officers weren't being prosecuted, and police officers starting to like it because they're like, wait a minute, all this crap's going away. But
let me turn my body cam on and show this person being absolutely belligerent.
Correct.
And I will make sure that I'm staying coherent.
Yes.
And, let them escalate, and then, here's the consequences. But back to the original point, which was, these police officers were trained to come over the top. They were meet any kind of resistance with brute force. And, hopefully that changes. Because, not that I do not agree that we need freaking guidance counselors or like therapists showing up when people are, calling the police. However, there was a time when police officers, like, they exercised discretion and, maybe you were too drunk to drive home. They drive you home. That's not the world we live in anymore. And so, it's just,
I agree. While I disagree with the DEA or the ATF agent's response to it, I somewhat understand it. And again, he's dealing with the most violent criminals that are in our society. And there are times and situations where he might use force that he deems necessary because he knows the people he's coming after, that it might be perceived as over the top. And I think when dealing with people like, again, extremely violent people, they need to be handled in a much tougher way. But that is the only logical thing I could come up with on why he would have that response. And but again, I think it's the wrong response because I still think body cameras are still the best way to go.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have maybe we'll get the chief. We had the police chief on a couple weeks ago, so hopefully we'll have him back on, and maybe he could explain that. And I'm sure that was probably the old school way of training, where you just are trained to overwhelm and control the situation no matter what.
Yeah.
And I would love to know if that is so. In fact, I think Captain Manone, I'll send him an email and I'll see if he can respond to that question for me, because he actually runs the training for the Meriden Police Department and on use of force. So I'll have to check with Captain Manone and see if he can give me an answer to that.
And as you know, buddy, I'm not from Meriden, so I try to take what you're saying and extrapolate it to my local community. So anyway, just wanted to weigh in. I'll let you get back to it.
Thanks, Jamie. And I love your community. I love coming out there. It's a beautiful place out there in Waterford. So I'll see you soon, and thanks for calling in.
All right, brother.
All right,
Take care.
buddy.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you. Absolutely. We absolutely do need to weed out the bad police officers. Let me just say that now. There are bad police officers out there. I'm not dumb. I'm not blind to what's going on out there. Is every police officer wonderful and great? No, they're not. And as I said this multiple times shows before, that we need to have some union changes because it's damn hard to get rid of one because of the union. And I know union guys over here are probably going to come back at me, but they shouldn't. Because just like their jobs, they want to weed out the bad ones to make their jobs easier. Well, police officers want the same thing, but the unions get in the way. That is a real problem. And for anyone to be blind to that is not in their best interest. We can't talk about all the positives. We can't talk about just the positives. There are negatives. And Minneapolis is a prime example of that. That officer had 19 infractions. 19. And he still had a job. Tell me where that's right. It's not. It's not right. But let's continue on here. Did I read this? Oh, I think I was in the middle of reading this one. I support the civilian committee. It will not only hold, I did read this one. Hold accountable. But listen, body cameras hold people accountable. Police leadership holds police officers accountable. Chief Rosado holds his people accountable. Captain Manone holds his people accountable. Chief Sherwood holds his people accountable. They all do. And our public safety committee, made up of your representatives that you elected to represent you, they oversee everything. But they're saying to you, the public, the people that voted them in, that they're too busy for you. They don't care what you want. We're going to do whatever we want, and we're going to pass the buck to somebody else, to civilians who have absolutely no idea what it's like to be a police officer. In fact, even the counselors have no idea what it's like to be police officers. And this is the final one. So this is the final I have. This came from a retired police officer. And I think this was pretty telling. I'm sorry if I come across overbearing. I'm just really passionate about this. I know what it's like to risk my life and not know if I'm going to get home to my family. We're trained to defend ourselves first in split-second decisions. These people don't have any idea what it's like being a police officer. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've never been put in that position, you can never understand what it's like. Never. And unless you're going to get a civilian review board made up of nothing but retired police officers, it's useless. Useless. They are trained to go home. I want them to go home every night. I have a lot of friends that are police officers. I will defend them to the death to make sure they go home at night. That is my only concern, is that every one of them get to go home. And in that split second where you have to make that decision of life and death, you would have no idea. I would have no idea what it's like to be in their shoes. And I tell you what, to be completely honest, I don't want to be in their shoes. Especially right now. Those 5 police officers that got injured about a month and a half ago, I honestly believe that's because they feared what would happen if they took that shot. In fact, that's what's been said. They have families just like everybody else. And you want to go home to your families every night. And you would do whatever it needs to make sure you do. Well, they are the same way with them. And that's why I defend them, because they do a thankless job. It's a thankless job. But again, they do it with honor and dignity. And when they screw up, they're held accountable. So let's listen to a couple questions that came up. So Mr. Fontanella, after listening to the whole spiel from Charlene on the survey, asked this question.
Bruce, go ahead.
In looking at these results, the danger of a survey is that you might get a biased group of people that are answering the questions. And if you review the results of this survey, is there any indication to you that there might have been a biased group that answered these questions? And I'll just give you as an example that last number 12. Do you feel clear on when officers are allowed to stop and detain and how they are to conduct themselves during stops? I would answer that. I'm a lawyer and I even took courses on constitutional law. I would answer that question not very clear. It seems that you have a big response of very clear, which may indicate that the survey group is biased towards the police. Did you come to anything like that?
This is a response.
That's a great question. You know, there were some responses, and I think I in the beginning I talked about those 10 that, it likely was a little bit of tampering or repeated submissions, that kind of thing. So there may have been a small number of that, but throughout the survey, folks seemed to be honest when they weren't sure. And what we saw in the comments, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on, is that the community genuinely wrestles with this. They want to both support the police and so even like they were saying earlier in the survey results, yes, I believe the police department is transparent, and I would like to see more transparency and openness. So I think that.
But again, to Bruce's question, was the group biased? Would he be asking the same question if the results were the same way? So let's just say we flip all this and say everybody despises the police department and that they were the worst things in the world. And all these results were against them. Would he be asking that same freaking question? Because let me get things really straight, really clear right now. When they made this survey, they had no intention of giving it to the people would give it to the people that would respond positively to the police department. Their plan was to give it to all these nonprofits that are anti-police. That was their plan. Did we fuck that up? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm proud of that. So do you know what? Was there a bias towards the police? You bet your ass there was. You bet your ass there was. Because everybody should be pro-police. Everybody should be sitting there thanking them for what they're doing out there. You tried to set them up with a bullshit survey and you got caught. And then we got our hands on the survey and we gave it to the people that would go ahead and say, no, the police are doing a great job. Was there a bias? You bet there was. You bet. But do you know what the crazy thing is? And the one thing that these counselors are missing is that the general public doesn't believe in your bullshit at all. They see right through this. This wasn't just Republicans and conservatives. These were Democrats and independents, just like the referendum. They're saying, what are you guys talking about? No, there's no issue here. No. But the best thing is, they didn't care about this. They were already prepared. When they found out that we got our hands on this survey and we were pushing it to our people, they were prepared. They were prepared for this situation. And that's why you heard her say, oh, well, you know, they're wrestling with whether or not, you know, they want to support the police, but they do want more transparency. No, we're not. We're not at all struggling with it because, yes, while we support our police department, who's doing a fantastic job, we also, like Mayor Scarpati said, if you're giving us a choice of more transparency or not, of course we want more transparency. Of course we want more information. You'd be a friggin' idiot not to grab it. That's why you have no idea that 20% that turned around and said, no, I don't want more transparency. We're good. We're good. That's idiotic. That is lunacy to me. Lunacy. I thrive on getting more and more information. I thrive on learning more and more. It's not because there's a bias. It's because that's just human nature. That's what you want to do as an informed citizen of a city. You should be always asking for more information, and you should always be willing to question authority. That's why I always say, fuck the government. I put a post out last week. Should the government? No. I don't want the government doing anything. I want the government to get the hell out of the way. This is exactly why I want the government out of the way. This is why I want the government in no part of my life or as little as possible. Because of shit like this. Because of this. You give them an inch, they're taking a yard. I will give them not a friggin' millimeter of play. Not a millimeter. And if I could think of anything smaller than that, I would. So let's move to the next question.
And so not statistically significant numbers, but those are individuals that may not otherwise have answered, even if it reached them. So there are benefits to doing it this way. And again, this isn't, we're not, this isn't a medical study. We're not looking at, the effectiveness of a vaccine, those kinds of things. This is the desire the committee had to get a community snapshot of a point in time of the values, beliefs, and readiness around civilian review. And
so you got that. You got your snapshot. You got your snapshot, and it told you to take everything you're trying to shovel and shovel it straight up your ass. That's what the snapshot was. That was what the snapshot told us. But my favorite person had to chime in. My favorite person in the entire city had to chime in, and she gave me a golden nugget. And again, I always love her because, again, she doesn't even realize what she's saying. She doesn't even realize what she's saying half the time. But it's basically telling the public to go F themselves. And we're going to listen to it right now.
So jokes be recognized.
Yes, go ahead.
I just really want to quickly say thank you to the entire committee and specifically to those of you who participated in the generating and conducting of this survey. We are, truly aware that we did not put any resources to you beyond the volunteer resources that were established. And so, to those that
sorry you didn't get the result you wanted.
Survey and the way that it was rolled out. I mean, obviously, if there was a desire to do something that was beyond just a sampling or a snapshot of those that are following this particular issue, then we definitely should consider if it still needs to be some deciding weight to this decision that we make, then we should, potentially look at trying to fund an actual survey that would have more controls in place. I personally think that with all of the information that we've heard over the last few weeks, couple months, that, this is only one item that we're weighing as we're looking at this information and trying to decide what our community needs and what we may need to respond to. So this is just one tool out of the multiple things that I think this committee has presented to us. And so, I appreciate the information. I appreciate the time that it took to collect it. I appreciate the fact that there may have been, some slants for certain people in the community, but that's no different than what we get at these council meetings when on particular issues that might be controversial. We generally use public comment and the comments that come in as a sampling. Not all 60,000, members of our community comment, but we use the people who attend and submit comments as a sampling of what the community might be feeling. And we weigh that the same way we will weigh these items. And so I do want to just thank everyone for the work you're doing. And I appreciate this as one of the tools that you'll be sending to council for us to look at as we review, where we go with this information moving forward. Thank you.
So basically, great job, guys. I'm sorry we didn't give you the resources you needed to get the survey to the decision that the way that we wanted it to. But it's not your fault. It's because people hijacked our survey, and these are the same idiots and the same deplorables and the same people that come up to City Hall and say, no, 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 and call them out for their bullshit. And then we're going to take that information and we're going to take those opinions and we're going to say, hey, we don't care about you. We're throwing them away and we're going to do whatever the fuck we want. I think I summed it up pretty quick right there in a nutshell on what the city council, the city of Meriden, think about the general public, especially those that do not agree with them. You could come, speak your mind. This is just a snapshot and a sample of pissed off people that we know who they are and we don't care what they think, so they could go screw themselves. That's basically what you're getting. Welcome to the city of Meriden. Welcome to the city council. They have been doing this for years and decades. They don't care what you have to say. They believe that their survey got hijacked. Every Democrat's out there, this survey got hijacked. And you know what? It did. And I'm so very proud of that. So very proud of that. So, no, I wasn't ignoring you, Roger. You're just not making any sense. So, which is why I ignored it. But we're going to end this show on a high note, as I try to always do. So, again, I was sent this podcast. This podcast is wonderful, and I can't express how much after this show I want you guys to go and look at it. But this podcast is pretty special, I think, and I find it very uplifting. I find it very positive because it's two guys that really came from nothing and really made mistakes in their lives. And they rebounded from that, and they took control of their life. And I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with on a daily basis, and more than what people would want to admit. We all deal with struggles in our lives. I deal with them on a daily basis. I am not a perfect human being. I have made several mistakes in my life, maybe not to their extent, where I've been in prison. I've never been arrested in my life. But again, we all have flaws, and it's up for each of us to realize that we have flaws and to address them in a positive way, to try to use those flaws in a positive way. And I've had many over my 43. Yeah, I'm 43, 43 years on this planet. So, but I do always believe also that we all have choices that we make in life. And I think this is a great quote. It's from their podcast. And it's all dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And that's from Walt Disney. And that's absolutely true. I mean, it all starts with yourself. It all starts with the belief in yourself. I come on this show. I do this show twice a week. And I try to, encourage people to be a better person. And my close friends and family, I try my best to push positivity. I try to push them to better themselves. And I think it's important that, in your circle of influence, which we talk about a lot here, that you do push each other to be better, and you cut out the negative. You can never get a positive response from a negative attitude. And these gentlemen, Kevin and Ben, have done just that. And I want to play this one clip. I love this clip here that I was watching, and I think it's important to play. Give me 1 second. This is from their podcast. And just listen to it. Because, again, always self-reflection. Self-reflection is very important. And unless you're looking in the mirror and realizing that you have your own flaws, who are you to criticize anybody else's? Hold on once, and then here it is.
For a long time, I used to myself look at the man in the mirror or tell people to look at the person in the mirror. And
we talking Michael Jackson.
Yeah, But what I've learned, but what I've learned over the years is there's actually a better way.
Okay.
And the better way is to actually see yourself through the eyes of someone who's going to keep it real with you. Because if you're going into the mirror with denial, then you're not going to really see what's in the mirror.
Amen. Absolutely. If you go in there with denial, not being ready to accept that you have flaws and that you have issues that you need to handle, without your friends there, without your support staff there, you fail. And that's why I say in your circle of influence, you need to be real with your friends. And there's plenty of times where I've told my friends, no, I think there's a serious issue. And there's plenty of times that I've been told that I am not seeing things the right way. And it's up for each of us to be able to look in the mirror and say, all right, we need to make change. But this podcast, I just want you guys to go over to, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify, I want you to go over there and watch the podcast. You're going to be inspired by these two gentlemen. It's Kevin and Ben, on where they've come from to where they are today. Is absolutely inspiring. And I couldn't be prouder to sit there and Bart. No, I'm sorry. I thought I put it Ben. It said Ben on their website. So Bart Simpson. I'm sorry. I'm being questioned, or I'm being corrected. So it's there. And don't ever say that to me, Sean. That's disgusting. Anyway, I ever see anyone put mustard on their watermelon, we're going outside. No questions asked. Or you're just going to catch one. But, see, you're taking me away from my positivity. So, please go over to YouTube or whatever, wherever you get it. Please go and watch Falling Up Podcast. And I will try to get the gentleman on here because I have a lot of questions for them. And I want to hear their story. Even though I watched their story on there, I have more questions for them that are probably from a different perspective that I want them to kind of talk about. Because I think it's great for you guys to hear this stuff. And again, we learn from each other. You know, that's how we grow. We need to grow together as a community. We need to grow together as individuals. And I think, you know, having a positive network around you is the best way to do that. Having that support staff to do that, I think, goes a long way. And I think it's you guys will enjoy the show. They have 3 out. They have 3 out there now. They have 3 episodes out there. Please, by all means, go watch it. It's Falling Up Podcast with Bart and Kevin. By all means, after the show, go and watch that. But guys, I just want to say thank you again. It's always an honor and humbling coming here and doing this show. I love each and every one of you. I hope everyone has an absolutely terrific 4th of July. We will not have a show on Sunday. I am going to be looking forward to my to the 4th of July. I am going to be spending it with my kids and people I love. So, and I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully all of you guys will enjoy your weekends and your holiday, and you're going to spend it with your friends and family that you love. And we'll meet back here again next Thursday. So until then, I love each and every one of you as always. And we're going to leave this show very appropriately, because God bless you and God bless this amazing country of ours. Oh, wrong one. Good night, everyone.